All right. I think we will start today's meeting. Welcome to colleagues and guests here in the 424th session of the Intergroup for Animal Welfare. We are we're Intergroup with a long history. We're actually the oldest, I think. Second oldest in the European Parliament. So we have long traditions here. But thank you for joining us today, both here in Strasbourg and online. And today's session will be focusing on an essential issue for the future of animal welfare in the European Union, which is the transition to cage-free farming. As you know, there was a European Citizens Initiative back in 2021. It was called End the Cage Age, and it collected more than 1 million signatures, actually. I think more than 1.5 million signatures. So many people engaged in this, and the Commission responded and said it was actually going to present a proposal. There was also a resolution in the European Parliament where a large majority backed the Citizens Initiative to have to phase out the cages in the agricultural sector. The European Commission now enters, or the European Commission's commitment to this policy now enters a decisive phase with the current public consultation, which is going on right now, which followed the call for evidence and anticipates the impact assessment. The European Commission had previously communicated that at least one legislative proposal on cage-free farming would be expected next year. And as far as I heard, this was going to be about hens laying eggs, and hopefully we'll hear more about that. But at the same time, there's no mention on the revision in the 2026 work program that we got this week. There's no mentioning of the cage-free farming initiative, and so we know that the work programs are not exhaustive, but we still find this omission alarming. We do hope the Commission will not leave this fundamental piece of legislation behind. And so we will hear also from the European Commission today what's going on with that. While progress has been made in some member states and sectors, hundreds of millions of hens, rabbits, sows, quails, and other farmed animals across Europe still live in confinement that restricts their movements and prevents natural behaviors. The forthcoming proposal will therefore be essential to ensure meaningful progress towards the End the Cage Age commitment, a just transition for farmers, and the continued advancement of animal welfare in the European Union. Ending the cage confinement is not only an ethical imperative, but also an opportunity to support farmers in transitioning to a more sustainable and humane systems. Delivering on cage-free legislation will require coordinated action from the European institutions, member states, and stakeholders, including the farmers, retailers, and consumers. This morning, we will hear perspectives from the European Commission, members of the European Parliament, and representatives of the farming sector on how to deliver this long overdue reform, ensure fair trade conditions, and finance this transition. A couple of announcements before we head on with the debate. On September, the 24th of September, MEP Christoph Smisek, together with 41 co-authors, tabled an oral question on fur farming and the placing on the market of farmed fur products. This comes at a decisive moment as the Commission is expected to decide by March 2026 whether to ban fur farming and farmed fur products in the European Union. A debate during the November plenary linked to a motion for a resolution would be very important to ensure that the Parliament sends a clear signal to the Commission to act on the citizens' and scientists' call regarding fur farming. We therefore urgently call on all Intergroup members to contact their political group leadership and support the inclusion of the oral question on the agenda at the November plenary. and to back its connection to a resolution. So basically, the oral question needs support from, I think, at least 3 groups, a number of groups, yes. So at least 3 groups. So if you could contact your leadership in the groups and ask them to back this proposal for a debate on the oral question in the November plenary and also have a resolution, it would be useful, and I will do that in my own group. We have one more announcement that I need to look at the screen here to tell you about. Well, that is upcoming. I can tell you there's a couple of practical details that you know, that the meeting will be streamed and available via Interactio. The session is being recorded. Materials will be available on the Intergroup's webpage afterwards, and we have interpretation in English, French, German, Italian, and Polish, which is available right now. So the last announcement, I will tell you that today there will be a vote on the CITES resolution, the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species. That's today in the plenary. This is an important opportunity for the Parliament to set high expectations for the EU at this global convention, and for us to further protections at EU level. There is an important split vote on the EU positive list, something the Parliament supported just recently under the dogs and cats proposal, and many times before that. And I urge MEPs to support the positive list during today's split vote by supporting all the text agreed in the compromise. So you need to support the compromise, basically. There is a call for a positive list. So that was just an announcement on the voting today. All right, then we will move to today's topic, the cage-free farming. We have first the European Commission, Mr. Andrea Gavinelli. He will be joining us online. He's head of unit for animal welfare at DG SANTE at the European Commission. And Mr. Gavinelli will present the Commission's perspective on advancing the transition towards cage-free farming and outline possible next steps in delivering on the end of the cage age commitment. And before Mr. Gavinelli, you have the floor, I will just tell you that we also have with us Mrs. Saskia Bricmont, member of the European Parliament from the Greens Group, who will discuss EU trade policy in relation to this phasing out of the cages initiative. And then we will have Mr. Gian Luca Bagnara, chairman of the Working Party, Poultry and Eggs of Copa-Cogeca. They will come afterwards, but please, Mr. Gavinelli, you have the floor for 10 minutes, and we look very much forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us online.
Good morning. I hope my audio is of good quality, and I'm welfare is just introduced, and is a period in which, as you know, we are also important. We are dealing with an important animal welfare file, is the one of the welfare of dogs and cats and their traceability that is under negotiation in these days quite intensively. But in fact, let's talk about the subject of the day, that is in fact the future work and the ongoing and the future work for the Commission in relation to the cage-free ACI. Next slide. First of all, in one word of precision, because it was mentioned, the Commission work program is a little bit an elephant in the room, in the sense is not in fact listing an initiative and a proposal in that sense, but to be clear, the work program outlines the flagship priority for the year, but is not precluding in fact our work in that direction in relation to what are the political priorities that have been outlined by in fact also the mission letters and what has been in fact in the letter of intents. So as a consequence, our work, and you will see, is ongoing, and the pace is quite dense indeed. let's go to the next slide. In fact, the clear background is fully integrated with the activities that are related to the evolution of the common agricultural policy and other related politics, like the trade one. In fact, probably you know, we have a specific reference to animal welfare in the vision for agricultural food that was adopted in February, in which in fact it is clearly mentioned as a political decision that we will proceed with the revision of the existing animal welfare legislation, and we will consider this commitment that was taken on the phase out of cages. There is also an important element that is connected with the speakers of today, that is in fact the relation between the products that are produced outside the EU and imported and their standards for animal welfare. If we go to the next slide, we have already developed a consultation phase that was in fact including 4 political options that are the phasing out of cages for the species that are in fact listed in the ACI, the analysis of the possibility to include indicators for animal welfare to benchmark and assess the quality of the activity and the welfare in the farm, their digitalization where is possible to facilitate the implementation and also simplify the life for not only the farmer but also for the inspectors. At the same time, work towards the definition of this important element of import requirements. And fourth element that is having an ethical connotation but also technical one, the phasing out of the killing of male day-old chicks in the EU for the laying hen sector. Now, next slide. The step of our work are started already from June with a call for evidence that in fact was published and received, and you will see several responses in June. The external study that is ongoing, that will also develop a consultative phase directly with the stakeholders, and a public consultation that is actually ongoing. Next slide. Indeed, the call for evidence, as I said, already received a large attention by several stakeholders and also the general public, with around 700 replies. There is a clear confirmation of the 4 main areas of work that have been proposed with interest. For example, the 82% of the business association have been also supporting a further use of the indicators and digital tools for improving the welfare at farm, and not only for the species that are strictly related to the ACI initiative. This is a very interesting element because connects with a lot of the science that has been developed in the European Union in the last years. And of course, we got economic data and a lot of practical experiences that were transmitted through this call for evidence. In the next slide, you see the elements that are related to the study that has been launched in September, will last for 12 months, and with targeted surveys and case studies. This will enrich and facilitate the preparation of the Commission proposals. As you know, we have to modernize a set and a key of legislation that is older in certain cases than 25 years, that raises several problems, including the fragmentation of the internal market, and as a consequence, we have really an investment to be done for the future. In the next slide, you see that we have this public consultation ongoing, started not so much ago, on September, and that will close in 1 month. In December, the 12th December, and this is in fact already receiving a lot of attention. The questions are also related to, as I said, the potential distortion in the current problem we have with the imports, but also on the internal market, in relation, in addition to the different measures for phasing out cages that are already ongoing, for example, in certain member states. The next slide shows also how we had already several different forms of stakeholders involvement, like the meeting of the EU Animal Welfare Platform. A recent one was a few days ago. We had more than 100 participants between the presence physically and online, and panels that discussed the welfare of ruminants one side and the import and welfare on the other. Very interesting panels, definitely, to enrich our work. And we have an appointment that I can mention here that has been organized by the Danish presidency of the council, a conference that is looking into, in fact, a projection of the future of animal welfare in the next 20 years. Definitely, in fact, trying to assess, because anything we do in this area is having transition and phasing in time, trying to see the dynamic of this phasing in of these different welfare requirements. Now, I will conclude with the next slide with a mention exactly on the work on health welfare indicators, because I think it's relevant to consider it in the cage-free initiative. Why? Because in fact, the phasing in of a cage-free system means also adapting the farming and adapting to different way of looking into it and assessing this transition, ensuring that the welfare and health of the animal are preserved. For this, and we go to the next slide, we are in Europe the most advanced in terms of research globally, and we have, sorry, there is some problem, okay, no problem. In any case, we have indeed a set of research with public and private partnerships that are bringing us the capacity to analyze and compare, for example, the performance across the different operators and member states already today, help us to monitor the compliance with the animal welfare legislation, and also at the same time indicators would help to inform consumers and citizens on the facts that are about animal welfare. If we go to the next slide, the animal indicators are indeed working on three different levels. The animal-based, that are looking really on the quality of the animal, of their life. The resource-based indicators that are in fact also helpful because are based exactly on what is the condition at the farm. And the management-based that are really based also on the quality exactly of who is dealing with the animal, of the operational quality of the farmer, of the operator, the driver, and whatsoever. All these elements together, they will be helping for this purpose that we mentioned before. Next slide. We have in fact we are working with the expert, with subgroups on animal welfare policy indicators that are really connected with the platform and with us. And a study that is probably the largest study ever developed in this area. We see that this is an important backbone to the reform, and is indicated also by the public consultation. Is also functional to the aspects related to the, in fact, benchmarking and the internal market. Next slide, these are the state of play. Just to give an example, I will not spend time in this detail, this level of detail is not necessary here, but it's showing you some example of what we talk about when we talk about the indicators. These are the ones that have been prioritized by the experts on these three categories of animals. And if we move with the next, a last one, just to say that we are having a study that is trying to achieve consensus, in fact, for a selection of species and indicators, as we saw, determine the measurements and the methods for collecting them, so to make it really practically usable, for also performing a cost-benefit analysis and the possibility to select them for the future, and to allow finally this baseline measurement that we are all looking for. So that's next slide is in fact the last. We have in fact technical surveys that are ongoing, improving this through the consultation process, but also the technical bodies like the European Center for Animal Welfare and the National Reference Center, and a survey that is just starting with 80 interviews with practically all the relevant European stakeholders. So with this one I'm closing, saying we have a lot of work ahead indeed. We need a clear-cut support in terms of really bringing this work to modernize the legislation, something future-proof and capable to really allow us to have exactly a vision for improving the welfare for the next 25 years. That's probably what I see in my experience, the intervals we have between one reform and the other in this area. So thank you very much for your attention, and of course I'm available for any question.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gavinelli, for this overview. And I hope you will be able to stay with us for a little while. So I'm sure there will be some questions and comments from the MEPs who are here. Now we will move to the next speaker. We're joined by Mrs. Saskia Bricmont, member of the European Parliament from the Greens EFA group from Belgium. Mrs. Bricmont will discuss how EU trade policy affects animal welfare and the need for stronger trade provisions to prevent imports from systems that fall below EU standard. So Saskia, we're very happy to have you, and you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and it's indeed a very important topic. I've been working already in 2029 on our reports on biodiversity and trade. And it was quite a challenge to include animal welfare consideration, although we were in the middle of the COVID, right? So all the challenges related to trade in wild species, for instance, started to be really known also by the public. And nevertheless, in this house, but also in the work that we led with the European Commission, it wasn't always easy to show the link and to make the link understandable between biodiversity and trade and the impact of trade or trade flows on biodiversity. And so you mentioned that we vote today on CITES. It was quite also a challenge to include the positive list of species, which is an important aspect in order to really deal with the matter. And so why you invited me today is also because I'm in charge of the EU-Mercosur trade agreement for the INTA committee and for the Green Group. And back in July, I was on mission in Brazil. And I met there with many organizations that are active in animal welfare. And they shared with me, Animal Equality Brazil, this study. And this is it's online, so please have a look at it. It's full of very interesting figures, numbers, facts, and also a table with all the legislations in the Mercosur countries and in the EU covering animal welfare is a big word, but related issues. And we can see in this study the differences, of course, between the legislations in the EU and in the Mercosur countries. And so typically, if we focus on the Mercosur trade deal, there are many questionable aspects, and I have many valuable colleagues that are really well aware of it because we work together on this matter, also from an agri perspective. But we see that animal welfare standards are lacking. The TSD chapter doesn't touch upon this issue and how negotiations have been led with the Mercosur countries on this matter. It was really clear from including Brazilian but also Argentinian side that they would not change the way, for instance, they produce or they have their feedlots, well-known feedlots for beef. although 70% of our beef is imported from the Mercosur countries. So we see that with this deal, we already import beef from those countries, but with the deal and the fact that we're lowering the tariff quotas, it means that even more beef will enter the EU. The Commission is always ensuring that the food safety standards are respected while importing products from abroad, but the focus is on food safety. And we know already there that the lack of controls, both when the products are being exported from the Mercosur countries and when they enter the EU, are lacking. Because there's an obvious lack at the customs of agents in charge of those controls, and there's no systematic and broad control. While in Brazil, we visited the Porto de Santos, which is one of the biggest export ports of products to the EU, but also to the rest of the world. And there we met with agents that clearly signified that there are in total 34 agents, vets, food safety, all mixed, that have to control more than 20,000 trucks a day coming in the port for the export market. Impossible. Barely impossible. And they also said there are no controls, no certificates, phytosanitary certificates issued for soy, for coffee, for corn, and certain other products. So there's a list of products that are excluded from their systematic controls, which is really appealing. It is something that we should not accept, and also there is a high expectation from EU consumers and a high belief that EU standards are being respected when importing products coming from abroad. So we have a huge work ahead here in this House to align what we just heard from the Commission, and I'm happy to hear that it's moving forward. But to align EU's policies also with our trade policies and our free trade agreements to ensure that the deals do not intensify abuses in animal agriculture. And we have to really condition the liberalization of trades on the respect of EU animal welfare standards. This is also a recommendation in this report on biodiversity and trade. 5 years ago, but it's still accurate because since then nothing really changed. What we often have as the discussions also with the Commission is that we should not overburden trade with rules, with standards, and impose our own EU values and standards through trade agreements to the rest of the world. And this kind of paternalist approach that we would have towards our partners. I think we have to take the problem differently. We are all living on the same planet. We are all aiming at good standards, social, environmental, animal welfare standards for us and for the people in the partner countries. And those are also based on international conventions, and not to name it, the CITES Convention on biodiversity, for instance. So if we look at the international conventions that we've signed and shared, of course, Milei in Argentina willing to quit the Paris Agreement, it's something else, right? But nevertheless, most of our partners are parties to those conventions on climate, on environment, on biodiversity, and this should be the starting point of our standards when we start negotiating FTAs. So it's not about imposing our own standards, it's about entering negotiations to see how we can get there and indeed somehow condition imports to the respect of standards. Otherwise, it brings what is now on our table unfair competition for farmers. Farmers in Europe have been investing in solutions to improve animal welfare, and they would face, they're already facing, and they would face even further with the Mercosur agreement and fair competition because of the import of beef products that are not respecting the same standards. And again, it's also misleading for EU consumers. What's left of the farm to fork strategy? That's also a question we should ask, because in this strategy there were interesting elements that should be put in place and be also the reference when we enter negotiations on new FTAs. We have upcoming deals with many countries where agricultural products will be part of the deal. And so the cumulative effect is also important to take into consideration. So when it comes to cages, feedlots, practices banned in the EU, it's still very accurate in most of our trading partner countries. So the question I would put on the Commission's table today is how far is the Commission willing to go when it comes to stop working in silos and include DG Trade, DG Agri in the discussions on and the cage initiative to make sure that all our policies, internal and external policies, are being taken into account. Last point I wanted to raise is also poultry coming from different countries, including Ukraine, where audits have been lacking since 2017. And I think, of course, we need to keep supporting Ukraine. This is, I think, unanimous in our House. But nevertheless, how can we now also support Ukraine to align on EU standards, including on cages? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Saskia. And of course, this is relevant when we legislate on cages, for example, in the European Union, that when we import food from other countries that do not necessarily live up to the same requirements, that creates a problem for us, as you have outlined. Right, our final speaker is Mr. Gian Luca Bagnara, Chairman of the Working Party Poultry and Eggs in the Copa-Cogeca, the agriculturist organization in Brussels. And Bagnara, you will share some insights from the farming sector and discuss how tailored financial instruments can enable farmers to a successful transition to a cage-free system. And Mr. Bagnara, you have 8 minutes. The floor is yours, please.
Grazie a tutti quanti, grazie all'Intergruppo per questa opportunità, grazie anche alla Commissione Europea per tutto il lavoro che sta portando avanti in sinergia, quindi abbiamo un confronto continuo di lavoro, perché questo è un percorso in progress, in continua evoluzione. Benessere animale per noi è il primo miglio per tutto l'aspetto della salute dell'animale. E questo perché il benessere animale non è soltanto un aspetto etico, ma anche economico. Se l'animale...
Sorry, sir. We just have to make sure that the interpretation works. I don't know if the English interpretation didn't work a minute ago. I don't know if it does now.
We're afraid we can't interpret. The sound quality is insufficient.
And he has to try to reconnect. Otherwise there will be
All
no
right.
interpretation.
So we hear that the sound quality is not sufficient. Could you try to reconnect and see if it works better?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you speak in English? Then perhaps
Yes.
we can do it like that.
Okay.
Great. Please, the floor is yours, Mr.
I
Bagnara.
managed to give a presentation in English. Okay, thank you for the intergroup of the European Parliament, and thank you to the Commission for the intensive work we are running together and the confrontation. For us, animal welfare is not just an ethical issue, but is also an economic issue, since in our view, welfare is the first mile of the entire health of animal. since if the animal is not in a good health, we cannot have a good economic return in the activity. That's why we need consistent economics reform, not legal reform, not just dedicated to welfare change from cages, no cages, alternative system, but also integrated in order to support the investment that our farmers are managing to run, and we are still running, since especially for hens, about 2/3 of the European system are already an alternative system. That means that our production system is following not the constraint of the law, but the need of the market demand, where consumers want better animal welfare, but also transparency of the market. The previous speaker mentioned about inconsistency of lack of control, import of products that is not in line with our standards. So it's not a damage to the production, but also lack of transparency to the consumer. So when it comes to investment, we need to have a guarantee since the bank require a return of the money. And so we need also transparency, reciprocity in the market, clear standards. Another point is when we invest to convert from cages to alternative system, it's not just a substitution of the technology, but also a redesign of the entire structure of the flock. So we are converting from a vertical structure to horizontal. That means more land, more open space, and so also more investment in biosecurity, since we have to protect our animal for contamination. Avian flu, other stuff are continuous in the territory. And so it's not, and the range of investment goes from 30 euro per hen to 50 euro per hen. So means could be around an average flock could invest from 500,000 to 1 million. Depends on the country, the situation. So huge investment. So that means that the current CAP, rural development to support investment, is not enough. It's not enough for the size. We estimate in a feasibility study run by Copa-Cogeca, we need about 3 billion euro dedicated just for our sector in Europe. So a huge amount of money. Another point is rating of the farm. If I have to invest 1 million, means I have to invest 1,200,000, since also I have VAT. And if I receive, maybe the CAP give us a perspective to receive 40% of the investment. That means 400,000 euro. But I have to invest 1,200,000. That is a lot. So I have to have this amount of money then to receive after the accountability to receive the grant. And so that opened the issue about the exposition of farmer to the bank system, to rating, and so on. Another point is the integration of the value chain, as mentioned by the previous speaker. If I invest, but the packaging system, the logistic and processing trade is not in line with my investment, I have a disruption of the value chain and so also the return of investment. So I need consistency of the entire value chain. We should invest together to face the market. That's why I want to explain to you the experience we had in Italy. We still have in Italy. Now I signed it just 2 days ago, the 5th project in the tender, in a tender of value chains. So it's a model to organize the public finance, the private finance of the bank in order to provide the entire need of investment. It's a total package of a maximum 50 million euro per project. The association I chair in Italy is leading the project as investor by itself. We invest as association in innovation, in new technology to experiment. For example, we are testing artificial intelligence to read, to see the behavior of the animal inside through visual analysis in order to provide new indicator, new facility to support a continuous monitoring of the system. And so in the package, all investors are investing together with the same perspective. So farmers, packing house, logistics, and so on. So this one is the fifth. So that means we already invest about four projects of this size, 50 million euro, in the coordination. And the financial structure is the government provided 40%, national fund. The commercial bank were selected to support this kind of project and accredited to work together with the government. So provided another 20-40% of loans, long-term loans. And then also the financial bank of the government to provide another piece of loans. So together they provide 100% of the investment. That is a good advantage for the farm, since I receive immediately, step by step, the full package to cover my investment. I don't have to apply for the grant and then knock the door to the bank to ask for a loan, to provide extra guarantee, extra collaterals, and so on. So the financial I receive as a farm is 100% of the investment. The second advantage is that I have a full integrated value chain to go straight to the retailer, to the shelf of the retailer, to direct to the market. That is a very important support. It's a pilot, so it works. So now I ask you to also, and together we can work together to design this kind of tools at EU level, because it is very important to integrate the financial we have in Europe. Commission, we have the European Investment Bank, so we can work, we need to have a full package in order to provide the full finance. And second, to reduce the exposition to single individual rating of the banks, because by myself as a farmer, my rating is very weak, it's poor. But together in a value chain, we have a differentiation, a reduction of the total risk, and so everybody improve as a rating for the bank. That is
thank you, Mr. Bagnara.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent. All right. Round of applause for you. Good perspectives on how this can be done financially. I would like to open the floor. We have about a little less than 15 minutes, and if there are any comments or questions, either for the Commission or for our other speakers, you're most welcome. Jessica, you raised your hand.
Sure, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here because we have very interesting topics to discuss. I have a couple of points that I want to address. I have also a question for the Commission. So I'll start with that one, basically. Thank you very much, Mr. Gavinelli, for sharing your timeline and what is happening, so we have a little bit of an idea of an update of what is going on. I do realize there's nothing really concrete that we can expect now, but we have to wait for this study. However, at some point, when we do get to concrete action, some member states, as you mentioned correctly, are further ahead with already phasing out the cages than other member states. So I'm assuming that the member states that are not so far will be helped with subsidies, but how are you going to compensate member states that already did all the front work and the farmers that have invested their own money in this? So I would like to hear from the Commission what the plan is in order to compensate farmers that are the front runners in animal welfare. So that's one question. I have a side note to the positive list, just for you to consider. In the Netherlands, we've been fighting with the positive list for a very long time. It's very hard to establish, and the problem is that it's very easy to overcome. So every time you put a certain species on the list, it's very easy by just making a difference, a slight difference in breeding, to overcome the positive list. So it's actually not really sustainable. And what we recommend to do is to have better husbandry and keeping regulations in order to have better rules on that. That's just the side note. Thank you very much, Ms. Bricmont, for your sharing your experience in Brazil. This is something I've been telling this house since I started working here, because I lived a long time in South America. It's impossible to get the same standards. It's impossible. Same is true for what's happening now in Ukraine. The Commission keeps promising us when it comes to trade, we will have the same standards. We won't. You talked about animal welfare. I'm very concerned as well about the use of antibiotics, also for public health. But the problem is, if we continue at the same pace, we are going to make the difference bigger and bigger. So when we address animal welfare, I want us to be realistic, that we do it in a way that we do not lose competitiveness. So yes, make sure that we keep improving animal welfare all the time, with whatever we can do, but in a way that we don't lose the focus on the competitiveness of our farmers. Because the trade deals will happen. And then we cannot compete. So that's a big concern I have.
That's, I think, a shared concern also, Jessica. Thank you very much. Valerie.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, thank you for giving us the floor on this very important issue. Animal welfare is a point of view we all share. We all share this desire to want to improve animal welfare on our farms. But there's a big gap between the intention and the reality on the ground, on the farms I represent. Behind this, you've got families, you've got debts, you've got people who've been struggling to implement standards which are ever harsher for decades. The sector has already made a lot of progress. We use more and more enriched cages. And a number of improved models, but they come with a cost. 15 to 20% increased cost, 3 years of having a deficit before we strike a balance. All of this is very costly. People are selling at a loss. We can only have a transition if there's support that's progressive and economically viable. We've already made a lot of efforts. And apart from the cost, there's also an inconsistency regarding the substance. European farmers are facing ever stricter standards, and at the same time, products are coming in from countries that don't comply with the same standards. So I'm thinking of Mercosur, but also Ukraine. Our consumers deserve transparency. This is a standard we should hold ourselves to, and I do believe it's worth discussing these divergences. Thank you.
Pour ces perspectives. La prochaine, c'est...
Thank you for sharing that. Tilly.
I heard you speak French, dear Chair. It's nice to hear. Thank you very much for giving me also the floor. My first question, and thank you for being with us, goes to Andrea Gavinelli, because I'm also happy to hear that the work is going on and that there is a lot of study and consultation going on. But so can we really expect then for the next work program that we will see more concrete, and especially regarding the cage age, some concrete legislative proposal. So I want to hear a little bit how you concretely see that. And then thank you very much also to Saskia Bricmont. I found that very interesting, the experience you shared about also the situation, how it is right now. And for me, it would be very interesting to hear a little bit when you say all that, and it's, I mean, you said very clear words that also countries like Argentina won't change their standards. So for me, only that would be a reason to definitely question Mercosur. So I would be interested how when the people see this study, at one moment we must, because for me it's not yet done, but only that, could that not be an argument that also to have other people, dear Commissioner, I know is rather in favor of Mercosur, but I would like to hear a little bit what your colleagues, their reaction, and when are we really going to question? That is one aspect, animal welfare, but it's certainly not the only one. And then I have also a question to Luca Bagnara from the Copa-Cogeca. I think it was very interesting to hear about the investment that are needed, but I would like to hear if it would not also be interesting to really foster the exchange of good practices. But as I know, also in Luxembourg, for example, that some people did already the transition, and for them they're telling me it's even more interesting. And yeah, well, I would have some other things to say to that presentation, but I stopped there. So to really ask about how he sees the importance of exchange of good practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Benoit for the last comment, and then we'll return to the panel.
Okay, thank you. First, for the Commission, I would like to know, did you do an assessment about the cost of the future European legislation on animal welfare and the effect on the cost for the consumer? Because I'm worried, because everybody say the consumer is ready to pay more for animal welfare. When we ask the question, they say that, but when we see the behavior of the consumer when he is really in the shop, it's something different. Did you make an assessment about this? And second remarks about the last speaker, he explained that he can obtain public funds for all the investment in animal welfare, but did you see the situation now about the budget of Europe, the budget of each country? Are you sure that in the future we will find money for it? I don't know, but I'm not so optimistic.
Okay, thank you very much. Then, good perspectives. I'll hand the floor back to the European Commission and ask you if you are optimistic and what we can do from your point of view, Mr. Gavinelli. Please, you have 1.5, 2 minutes each to each person here.
Microphone is green. Now, okay, fine. Thank you very much. And thank you for the question. A pleasure to be able also to have a short answer. First, in terms of the compensation of the member state and farmer that have been investing and developing cage-free systems. As Mr. Bagnara said, 2/3 of production have been shifting towards these practices in Europe since more than 15 years, driven by market trend and a change, we can say, in the approach. This analysis came from economic data and technical data that we are collecting. Indeed, the measures that will come for the implementation of the ACI will consider these aspects of competitiveness as the first thing, and that's why also the discussion on the capacity to phase in the transformation with the appropriate benchmarking that will allow also to profit and market this transformation, not only on the internal market but also in relation to the export dimension. In particular, when we talk about this dimension and coming to what was raised about the issue of the Mercosur, clear-cut, whatever is an agreement, here we have anyway, and we had recently a panel in the platform of animal welfare, we have definitely an ethical demand that stays at the bottom of this from the European citizens, where in fact the equivalency in terms of the welfare requirement is strongly demanded. We see coming from every direction in the stakeholder chain. For what is the assessment of the cost for the consumer, as said required by Mr. Cassar, definitely we are doing this analysis as part of the work we are performing towards the preparation of the proposal. Despite many are saying consumers is ready for paying more, please note I have not said that. But on the contrary, what we are developing is an analysis exactly of the different segments of the market that currently exist, and also the factors that could allow to preserve the premium market, because this premium market is in any case bringing back as you know, more profits than the other market, and is a guarantee for the future in a certain sense. Losing this premium market will be the problem. That's the first question we have on the table. Welfare is a sour fare from the European point of view. We know very well, much eradicated in the production, as Mr. Bagnara said, reflecting the quality of the sour fare of the European producer, and should be a way to print out for the future a strong capacity to maintain it. I think I took my part for the few minutes, but of course we will continue this dialogue in the next 12 months at least.
We will indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Gavinelli. Saskia.
Thank you. Very quickly, because it's always better to ask the Commission directly instead of being their voice. The answer we systematically get is that the EU standards will be respected, that EU safety is ensured, and that it's not a problem, that we have to look to other examples, Canada, where we also feared from our side the flood of hormones beef, and it is not the case because Canada didn't really adapt its own way of producing, and so it's not importing that much to the EU. That's the answer we get. But nevertheless, considering the situation, and you mentioned it rightfully, in those countries, there's no guarantee that this meat will not enter the EU market and that we will not consume it. Even the Commission is saying there are guarantees. Audits from DG SANTE have shown that potentially meat from Canada entered the EU and was distributed in the EU markets. I don't know where it stands now, but it would be interesting to have a new one to see clear on this issue, because indeed growth hormones or antibiotics, we have no guarantee today that it doesn't go through qu'il n'y ait pas de trou dans la raquette, right? That there are no loopholes. And I also agree with you that those countries will not align on the EU standards. They will not change their own producing models. They said it clearly. I mean, when we had this conversation on the mirror clauses, the Brazilian counterpart said clearly, we use pesticides that might be forbidden in the EU, but that we have to use here for climate reasons, which is another argument that can be contested, but nevertheless, that's where we stand today. So I think we should be able to thoroughly rethink our trade relations or trade model, the FTA model. I think it has become obsolete. I really think that we have to, together, in an intergroup manner, think about other kind of partnerships and targeted trade deals, instead of having those huge FTAs that bring also many negative impacts on us, on them, and that are not fair. So if we really want to have an animal welfare approach, I think we need also to rethink our trade policy at EU level, and I'm happy to do that with you.
That's some big thoughts there, Saskia. We'll need to think more about that. I think, Mr. Bagnara, if you have 2 minutes, colleagues, I understand we are past 10 o'clock, but Mr. Bagnara, if you have
very briefly,
to give a short answer.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, we are willing, we not just willing, we must share all the experience, because welfare dimension is not just different convert cages, no cages, but also reorganize the value chain up to the final consumer. So investment, institutional building to support the investment in these new financial tools, financial instruments, as I mentioned. Another point is transparency of the value chain, because everybody mentioned, well, consumer willingness to pay. Okay, maybe it's willing to pay, but is the retail system willing to transfer the value back to the producer? So that is another issue to make, to organize contract and transparency of the value chain. Thank you.
Thank you for your precise comments, Mr. Bagnara. Thank you, all of you. Sorry for using 3 more minutes than we had. We'll see you next time. I myself will be on parental leave, as my girlfriend and me was blessed with a son recently. But so for the next 3 months, I will not be here. But I know that there's a very competent person, Tilly Metz, who will be chairing while I'm not here. And I look forward to seeing you again afterwards. Thank you. I'll see you. Thank you. Thank you very much.